All right. Yeah, let's do it. Uh, I was kind of feeling into something a little bit more practical today. This
Hmm.
topic has been coming up for me, even just for myself, the topic of like how to begin a breathwork practice
Hmm.
if you're starting from scratch, and then how do you build? Like, where do you go from here, right? So that it becomes like a very, ideally, a sustainable practice, right? Like, hey, we're in this for the long haul, right? Ideally, this is something that we can tap into for the long term. I
Yeah.
really believe that it's like, it's not going away. Breath work, breathing isn't a fad.
Hmm.
So it's like, how do we initiate the practice so that feels really, so we can feel good about it. We get the effect, of course, and it kind of like naturally builds. So really the first place that I'd like to start is like, why the heck would we do a breathwork practice, right?
Hmm.
So the why is is a little bit more of that pull energy, right? It's just like more of the carrot than the stick. And I just mentioned that because like I think we tend to do a lot of like stick, stuff like, oh, I take this medicine. I do cold training because it someone told me I should.
Hmm.
Whereas like oftentimes really both are happening simultaneously. Like, yeah, you can do breath work and there'll be moments where I'm like, I kind of don't want to do it. But I know how I'm going to feel afterwards. And so that I can just give that more attention, more of like, oh yeah, I know I'm going to feel good after this. And then that feels a little more like the carrot. So really the big umbrella here, the why is nervous system regulation, right? So I think that's probably probably the easiest way to think about breath work in general, is just like through the lens of what it does to the nervous system. Remember that it both affects and reflects the state of our nervous system. So if we look at our breathing, it tells us a lot of information. It's like looking under the hood of the car. But then, of course, we have this opportunity to put it into manual mode. We can breathe in a certain way and get this type of effect. So yeah, nervous system regulation, which is, put another way, is like a state change, a change in our physiology, our internal workings, right? And so what we also then see is like, well, it changes our emotional states, right? So our emotions will start to shift, our thoughts will start to follow suit as well. Um, and then other things like our energy production and our mental faculties, right? So, like less brain fog and all of these things. So, really, the way I like to think about that is usually what we're doing with nervous system regulation is just shifting more towards homeostasis, right? Our equilibrium point. So, we talked, I really like this heuristic of the pendulum swing of the autonomic nervous system, sympathetic on one branch, parasympathetic on the other. It's I always give a little bit of the asterisk. It's like that's not exactly how it works. They can both be stimulated simultaneously, but in most scenarios, I would say at least 95% of the time, it's like it's basically behaving like that pendulum swing. There's this negative feedback loop between those two systems. So if one is stimulated, it tends to dampen the other. And so it does kind of have that pendulum swing. And then the other big feature of that pendulum swing is the further up we go on one end, the more kind of momentum and energy gets pushed towards this pendulum swinging the opposite direction. Yeah. So what we usually see is, well, if I'm too far this way, I can do a breath work that brings me back towards our middle, and then same thing on this side. So that's kind of breath work, I think, in a nutshell, and how we usually think about it. Um, and then yeah, tapping into our why, there's just a lot there. Um, when we look at the research and just kind of felt experience. So when I do my breath work, um, there's a few things I'll kind of share some of my own that I like to tap into before I do it, right? Again, I think the why is just so important. So my big three are peace, improve focus, and self-understanding. Know thyself, right? So when I do that, when I do my breath work, I'm like, okay, really, that's kind of at the foundation, that's at the root of why the heck I do this stuff. And then if those improve, like then I can be um, more impactful, right? I'm just nicer to be around. I'm less grumpy. I can kind of tap into my creativity. It just like really ripples out into so many aspects of my life. And so, um, it points at like my own values and my mission and these types of things. So just kind of drawing that like little connection, it's only like one more step away. I'm like, oh, I do breath work so that I can be better in all these other aspects of my life. And so it really is, it's at the top, right? So if my breathing improves, my nervous system improves, that improves every other system of the body. The nervous system is at the helm, it's in the driver's seat. Life just gets better. It's a win-win. So it's better, breath work is good for me and it's good for you and it's good for the world, right? I'm just a better, all the above. Maybe enough about that. Okay. So yeah, it's really important. You can kind of tap into that like prior to your breath work. And I really believe that it amplifies our attentiveness while we're doing the breath work and some of the dullness that can kind of come and we're like, oh yeah, I'm just going to do this thing because I heard it's good for me. It's like, no, there's so much more. There's a really big impact that we're creating by doing the breath work. Um, so when we think about building out our breathwork practice, so let's start with like beginners, right? Hey, if I'm just starting, I heard breathwork is good. What is breathwork and where do I start? Should I do a Wim Hof method? Should I just Google it and find a 15-minute guided breathwork practice online? Should I download an app? Should I just lay on my back and breathe through my nose? Should I do some of these techniques, 4-7-8? Should I do box breathing? There's a lot to kind of unpack here, and I recognize that it does get a little bit um, confusing for that reason. It's easy to get into the weeds. It's easy to lose the forest for the trees. So, first off, breath work, my definition of breath work is just anytime we consciously change the breath, right? As soon as you focus on the breath, it's going to change, even by just thinking about it, right? That's usually the case. That's usually the case. So yeah, if you consciously change your breath, it's like, let's call it breath work, right? It's a very general term. Within that, we have two divisions that I like to look at. So it's our offline practice and our online tools. Offline practice, online tools. So let's just define those first. Offline practice is I'm not I don't need to do anything, right? I'm usually lying down or I'm sat, and I have some designated time to just practice the breath. Okay. And then the online tools are kind of in the moment things, right? I'm doing chores, I'm at work, I'm playing a sport, right? It's like these little things that we can maybe sprinkle in the moment during the action. Okay. So let's talk about our offline tools. First, let's unpack that a little bit. So, I really like to look at the simple division of our offline tools is breath awareness, under breathing, and over breathing. Breath awareness, under breathing, and over breathing. So, breath awareness really is number one. It's number one. What is breath awareness? Breath awareness is looking at the your breath. How do I know I'm breathing? Is a good question to ask. I'm like, okay, well, I feel some sensations. My body's moving. I feel the air moving out of my nostrils. What sensations are popping up for me? Yeah. Um, it's tougher than it sounds, right? As soon as we start looking at the breath, we almost immediately want to grab a hold of it and start to change it. So really simple in its essence, but kind of difficult to practice. We can do this lying down. We can do it sat. We could do it standing. We could do it walking, but lying down is going to be the easiest. So usually that's where we start with that, right? These postural muscles that are also part of our breathing mechanism, right? A lot of these muscles play dual roles. Well, when we're lying down, they don't have to do that anymore. They can just do the breathing, right? And we want to do it more relaxed. We kind of quiet the noise, both literally and just trying to reduce stimulation so that we can just focus on what's happening at the breath. Okay. So remember, we say that the breath both affects and reflects the state of the nervous system. So breath awareness is the reflection, right? It's opening up the hood of the car. We look at it and it's like, oh, I'm breathing fast and my mouth is open and I feel some tension in my neck. That's information. Oh, I'm breathing slow and I feel my belly move a little bit. Here's the pace, right? We can start to get some information. Um, we see this in all sorts of places. Like, hey, if we want to fix a problem, well, we have to know what's going on first. When a patient comes into the clinic, I do an assessment first. We do all the data collection. Now I know what to do. That's arguably why they're coming to see me, right? It's like, well, what is going on with the knee and mechanically and how that interacts with the hip and blah, 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 blah. Um, because if it was just like, oh, let's just throw a bunch of stuff at it, I'm gonna hop on YouTube and do all the exercises that I find, a little bit of a shotgun approach. It's like, yeah, that might work, but it's highly inefficient. And it's just gonna take you might do it, you might not, you might improve, you might make it worse, right? And so that's actually what we see in the breathwork space too. We see people making it worse, whatever their thing is. Like, I'm doing breath work because I have anxiety, I have tension, and then I breathe this way, and then like I get more of that. Surprise, surprise. So we want to make sure that we don't skip level one, right? Step number one is breath awareness, learning what's going on. That's your data collection. And then continuing to tap into that practice and into that skill. And again, we start with an offline tool because it's just easier there. It's going to be really tough to do that when things are already stirred up, right? When we're already at a high level of arousal, when we're surrounded by chaos, and we're like, oh, let's look at the breath. It's like very difficult to do. That's like jumping to level 5.5. So we do that level one, do the data collection, and then we can start to change it. So here comes the underbreathing and the overbreathing. Underbreathing and overbreathing. So overbreathing, let's start right there. It's just what we typically see when we think of like Wim Hof method, Tumo breathing, cyclical hyperventilation. These are some common terms in this space. And it usually looks like breathing through the mouth really fast, just moving a lot of air. And you can do it through the nose too. If you just looked up, you type in like breath work into a Google search or in the TikTok search or Instagram search, that's usually what you see. People breathing really fast, right? Um, and what they're usually doing is, well, then they switch to some underbreathing, right? So they'll often oscillate between those two. Very, very common. So underbreathing could be holding our breath. Underbreathing could be holding the breath. It could also be just really slowing the breath down. right? If I took 15 seconds to do an inhale and 15 seconds to do an exhale, and then I keep lengthening it, eventually you'll get to a point where it's not sustainable, right? The CO2 is going to build up. You're really going to start to feel the air hunger. Okay. So that would be under breathing, right? A non-sustainable breathing rate and volume. Okay. Obviously, holding our breath is not sustainable. So we typically see the oscillation between those two. Um, so we do offline breathing as a way to experience kind of like the full expression of our breath, right? We go really far on this pendulum swing this way, maybe as far as we can, especially once we become more practiced and experienced, we know what's going to happen. And then we go all the way opposite direction, under breathe as much as possible, hold our breath as long as we can, back and forth pendulum swing. Um, so I often think about offline breathing, well, really breath work in general, a lot like our movement practice. So we can draw a lot of analogies from our movement practice. And offline breathing is like doing a workout, right? It's like I go to the gym, I'm there for an hour, and I go through this big ebb and flow, right? I do my warm up, dynamic stretches, get the heart rate up, and then I get into some strength training, some high intensity, some of these dynamics, but I do a set and then I rest, set. So we kind of see this big oscillation. Um, Different body parts, different movements, different muscles working. Heart rate goes up, heart rate comes down. And then we have like a little bit of a cool down. So our offline breathing practice can kind of look like that, where it's just like, okay, we're just kind of doing this and then, start to get into these big ebbs and flows. And then we kind of like taper and have a cool down as well. So you can kind of, if you have a movement practice, if you're used to like working out, it's like you can kind of tap into that type of um that vibe, that type of ebb and flow for your own breathwork practice. And and I like to say that like there's as many different ways to breathe as there are movements in the body. Push and pull, bicep curls, pull-ups, squat, crunches, ride a bike, do tai chi. Like there's so much that we can pick from. It's really a buffet. Breathwork is the same. There's a lot there. There's a lot there. So it's like, well, we like to condense it down into like its simpler blocks so we know kind of what area we're pulling from. Is it an upper body push or an upper body pull? Right? Those are some categories that we use in our functional training. Is it more of a squat or more of a hip hinge? Right? It's like, oh, those are some categories, and we can really kind of narrow down our movement practice. Is this core work or is it mobility? Right? So again, breathwork just kind of has some of those same themes. Um, and I just find that very useful because then we don't lose the forest for the trees. Yeah. Okay, so online tools. So our online tools are the things that we're doing in the moment. It's nervous system regulation when things are like starting to drift in a direction that is maybe unsavory, right? I'm getting a high level of arousal. I'm overexcited. I'm anxious. I'm worrying. I'm feeling a panic attack come on. It's like, okay, well, those are good times to like we've detected something happening. Maybe it was the breathing because you practice your breath awareness, so now you're a little more tapped in. But it could be something else, like, oh, I'm clenching my jaw. Oh, I have a headache. I feel tension here. My heart's racing. Something, right? Some type of signal, and then we're like, oh, maybe I can turn to the breath. I recommend that, like, that's where we start. Right. Maybe movement, like that's always a good option as well. But then breath is first or second. So by the way, movement could just be like, oh, dance it off, shake your limbs, do some jumping jacks, right? Change your body position, and then tap into the breath. that's not always an option. Like if you're in the middle of a meeting, right? You're like, if I just started flailing my arms during the meeting, like what the heck is going on? Like, oh, don't worry, I'm just regulating my nervous system. So maybe that's not a good option, but what I could do is I could just change the way that I'm breathing, right? Um, so yeah, I mentioned some of our online tools. What are some tools that come to mind for you? I mean, there's a lot to pick from. Yeah, which one comes? Yeah, if you have some that are like your go-to online tools.
Two more time.
Tumo.
Wim Hof. Uh,
Yeah. So say you're like
and
you're in the
then
moment. So what does that look like for you? What would Tumo time look like?
like in the moment, what do you mean? Like if I'm in
Yeah,
like if I
like
was in
you're
it,
you're at
if
work or
oh,
you're
well,
doing
if I can walk
chores.
away, I'll do the two more time, you know? Like if I'm starting to get worked up and if I could
Hmm.
walk away for sure, then I'll do it. And doing deliveries right now, I can kind of do it. I mean, of course, when I'm driving, I'm not, but if after I drop off an order, then I stop. But if okay, let's say if I was in a meeting, or this is something I'll do when I'm driving deliveries, I'm driving, I'll just do the 5 in, 5 out,
Hmm.
and I'll count, and I'll do it for as long as I need to. The best one for me, at least, I find, um, because it's more. I mean, if I let's say if I was in a meeting, it'd definitely be more subtle, you know.
Hmm.
It's slow, it's not loud, it's controlled. Um, I'll even do like sunset when I'm driving, because it's not super intense unless I start like exhaling with my mouth open. You're like, if I breathe in and then if I do like that, then I'm offloading too much CO2. But if I do it through my nose,
Hmm.
it's not as intense. So it's kind of that's if I'm more worked up. Then the 5 in, 5 out isn't doing it.
Yeah.
So that's what I'd say. But if I can walk away, then I'm doing, if I can pull over or whatever, two more
Hmm.
time, something like that.
Yeah.
Box breathing is, I've noticed for me, I don't really do this much, like the 4-7-8, because it's kind of been like, that's been a weird, like a 50-50 one. Like sometimes it calms me down and sometimes it ramps me up. So, you know,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So, yeah, I'll just kind of share. Like I wrote down some of like maybe like my go-tos or like the ones that have
Mm-hmm.
kind of been the most common or just popular for both me and people that I work with. So like
Mm-hmm.
physiologic sigh, like that one's still a good
Oh
one to
yeah,
have
I
in your
do
back
that.
pocket.
I
Yeah.
forget. I do
There we
that
go.
all the time. I forget because
Yep.
that's like quick.
Yeah, yeah. Right. So yeah, physiologic sigh, double inhale, long
And
exhale. So it's in
yeah.
through the nose, out through the mouth or nose, right? You can kind of play
Mm-hmm.
with it. But basically, yeah, it's just like height really inflate, and then it gives you all of this, it gives you a little bit of extra buffer, or it just makes the exhale a little bit easier, right? And that
Yeah.
long
So,
exhale is very relaxing, very parasympathetic. Um, it's as far as we can tell, per the research, it's like that's the most kind of the fastest way we can activate the parasympathetic nervous system. So, yeah, that one in particular is especially good for when we're over aroused and we don't want to be. Or like we recognize I'm like, yeah, I'm way more worked up for whatever reason. Don't have to really interpret the meaning, but like I would rather be more towards equilibrium, calm and relaxed, alert yet calm.
mhm.
Yeah, physiologic sigh. So yeah, physiologic sigh is a good one to have in your back pocket. Box breathing, like you mentioned, that one's going to slow down your pace and it's
Yeah.
pretty even, right? With the inhale, exhale, the longer you do it, you'll kind of be able to detect like there's a swing that happens on the inhale and hold, and then the relaxation happening on the exhale and the pause. And then, of course, we're like really slowing down the rate. But then the overall is pretty balanced. So if you
Hmm.
do that long enough, you will end up at your equilibrium point. But because it's a balanced one and it doesn't have, so much directionality, it might take a little bit longer to get to that spot. So yeah, that's box breathing. Sunrise and sunset, right? Sunrise being our upside down triangle, right? If box breathing is in, hold, out, pause, right? Sunrise is in, hold, out, in, hold, out. And then usually we start with equal sides. So maybe it's 3, 3, 3, but you can build
Hmm.
it just in the same way that we do with box breathing. So sunrise, of course, as the name implies, it's like a little bit of this nudge toward alertness. So it's usually when we're like drowsy, um, maybe when we're just waking up and we want to give it a little bit of that nudge so that we don't need to drink as much caffeine or pound the energy drink or whatever it is that we need to do. So it could also
I've
be
got
like during the afternoon lull.
yeah.
Yeah,
I've got a question about sunrise breathing.
yeah, go for it.
For the longest time, I was doing it in and out of my nose, but then I started doing it in my nose and then exhaling out my mouth. And then like kind of squeezing at that bottom of the exhale to get all the air out. Honestly, I don't know if I've done it enough both ways to. I've more recently started with the out my mouth, like a sigh. Does it make a difference? Is it making a difference, or am I getting more nitric, what do you call it, nitric oxide going in and out of my nose? That's what I'm saying. Is it doing it in my no out of my nose going to give me more of the boost because of the nitric oxide, or is the offloading of the CO2 going to give me more of a boost by going out of my mouth?
Yeah,
Is
good
that,
question. Um, so on the level of nitric oxide, right, on
yeah.
this kind of metabolism side of things, it's like, well, we know nitric oxide, it does a bunch of different things. But
Mm-hmm.
so it's immune system, and then it's also just it's kind of a relaxing molecule as well. So we know that,
Oh
hey,
yeah.
when it enters the bloodstream, it it signals for our blood vessels to dilate. And so
Okay.
remember, just like any other muscle, the constriction of the blood vessels is an activation. It's a contraction of
Hmm.
the muscles that surround the blood vessels. So basically it's saying like, oh, let's relax those. So it has this like relaxing effect to it. Now, when
Yeah.
we inhale through the
Okay.
nose, it activates it. Okay. So
Hmm.
to answer your question, it's like I don't really think the nitric oxide aspect of the sunrise breathing is really where I'd be thinking about this one. More, what
Okay.
I'd be more thinking about is, the gear system, right? So gear two versus
Yeah.
gear three, which is basically what you described. Um, when you exhale through the nose,
Hmm.
the diaphragm has to go from its flattened position, right? And then slowly relaxes and lengthens to its resting position in that dome shape.
Yeah.
The the eccentric control, the negative part of that movement, right? Those are, it is it's kind of tougher for that muscle to do. Eccentric
Hmm.
control to slowly lengthen.
Hmm.
That's just true for all skeletal muscle. Whereas if you exhale through the mouth, it's easier. The diaphragm doesn't have to work as hard. You can just change the
Yeah.
aperture of your lips. Am I breathing out through a straw or wide open? So those muscles don't have to work as hard. It's easier on the diaphragm.
Yeah.
So what I'm usually thinking about there is like, is the diaphragm kind of struggling? Is it being used as our stability mechanism, right? Like, oh, it's
Hmm.
becoming really tight and active to do a stronger core brace. Maybe that has been what's going on. Maybe the diaphragm has kind of been like we've been shallow breathing and it's just kind of like fluttering like this.
Hmm.
So when we exhale through the mouth, the diaphragm just gets to chill. It just gets a really nice opportunity to relax. And if you
Hmm.
do a nice long exhale out through the mouth, well, the diaphragm gets a longer time to relax. And then it usually just gets to return to its full resting position, which usually isn't the case. And you can, you know, learn this, if this is true for yourself as you get better at the breath awareness,
Hmm.
right? Like, oh, am I holding my breath? And I'm doing this with the diaphragm. And that's why it's kind of like closing off the connection between my chest cavity and my abdominal cavity, right? And then that's where my stress and anxiety is coming from. Like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, well, if that's the case, well, if I do this in through the nose, out through the mouth, long exhale, diaphragm finally, instead of doing its this thing, hold breath, hold, it really gets to relax. So oftentimes like that sensation and the kind of the closing off, remember that the diaphragm has holes in it, has three
Yeah.
hiatus for the esophagus, for the blood vessels. So when it relaxes, like, oh, blood gets to continue and it takes some, changes the pressure on the heart and signals to the vagus nerve for us to relax. So there's a lot going on, but that's usually what I'm thinking about when we're like, if that feels especially good. So it's not a perfect one-to-one correlation, but that's worth investigating. You're like, oh, if I do like to that exhale out through my mouth feels better, I would say probably 9 times out of 10 is because the diaphragm was doing something like that. I was holding my
Yeah.
breath and it was doing the posture thing. It was kind of in protection mode. So we like let it relax fully. It's like, hey, maybe I've been like this for who knows how long, half an hour,
Yeah.
longer. I've been sitting at my desk for multiple hours, and then little did I know, like I was kind of doing this with my diaphragm, like it was really active the whole time and
Yeah.
never relaxing fully. Um, but the cool thing about that, Nate, is that um, if you can just detect like, hey, whatever feels good for you, like
Yeah.
the specifics of like what's happening to the diaphragm, like who cares? Like who
Yeah.
cares? It
Yeah.
feels better. Like things are kind of back online. Like you can use that as your metric and you never have to think about this ever. It's kind of nice to know that. Like I'm super nerdy, obviously, with this stuff, and that's how I like to think about it.
Yeah.
But then, like, let's simplify it. Let's simplify it and just be like, does it feel better this way or that way? Cool. Like, do that. Keep going with that version of your sunrise breathing. Um,
Yeah. Because it's not. I'm not doing like a purse to my lips. I'm doing it like it'll be like this, like, and then I
yeah,
squeeze it at the bottom to get that last bit out, and then I go back into it.
yeah, cool.
So I don't know. Even doing it just now, I felt like a little poop, like a little bit more up,
Yeah,
So
yeah,
like
cool.
I don't know. I don't. I've never done it like it's either in and out of my nose or in my nose and then big breath out.
Yeah. So both of
Uh,
those will have that effect for the diaphragm.
yeah,
Yeah. If it's mouth wide open, it's going to go faster,
yeah,
and you're using its core muscles, right? So it's the ones that surround our abdomen, some of which between the ribs, pulling the ribs down, pelvic floor activates. So that's also a signal to let the diaphragm relax. So yeah, that
yeah.
sounds good. Yeah.
All right.
Good.
That's usually when I wake up,
Hmm.
just
Yeah. Sunrise
and probably has
breathing.
something to do with the congestion too. Like I can kind of get it in, but it doesn't want to go out.
Yeah.
Depends, in the morning. If I'm less congested, it's easier in and out the nose. But if I'm more in the nose, out the mouth for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Cool.
know?
Yeah. I think the context is going to makes a big difference, right? So it's just like, well, it worked when I was doing my chores, but it's not working while I'm at work. Um, and does it change? It's a little bit different during my soccer match. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
that's going to happen. The context will make a really big difference. adds to the effect.
Yeah, because I was just trying to figure sunset. I usually do nose for sunset
Mhm.
breathing, you know,
Yeah.
in and out of the nose usually.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So
You do
sunrise and
yours?
sunset, two very really good beginner tools, right? Do I want a little bit more arousal, a little bit more energy, or do I want to have a little bit more relaxation? And they're on the more gentle side too, which is really good. It doesn't always have to be so abrupt. And the name also kind of
Yeah,
points to these moments like, oh, it's morning time routine and evening time routine where I don't need to like
yeah.
have
It's
this huge state change. I kind of just need a little nudge in the direction.
yeah. Sunset's good for evening for sure. Because when I was doing Wim Hof in the evening to try to calm down or de-stress or whatever, it was ramping me up, you know.
Hmm.
And I was having a hard time sleeping because I would like even if I did it 2 hours before bed, man, you know.
Yeah.
So that's when I sunset. Thank you for that video because then I started just doing that and I was like, oh, this is, you know, I mean
Yeah.
the not the video, the audio recording.
Yeah.
It's just easier. It's more just, you know, calm down.
Hmm. Yeah. And then another one that I written down as a really popular one is the perfect breath. Uh, so
Perfect
the
breath.
researchers point to 5.5 seconds on the inhale and 5.5 on the exhale.
Yeah.
Like 5 or 6 seconds, because if you're, again, it's in the moment. Like maybe you start with a 5 count. It doesn't have to be perfect seconds.
Hmm.
Maybe do a 6 count, right? And just kind of feel it out. Um, and then of course that one's really balanced. Yeah, it's a good place to start. It's a good one to just, in my opinion, to like, what breath do I do? It's like, yeah, do a five in, five
Yeah.
out. And then oftentimes you're like, okay, now I can transition. You could transition to another breathing tool if you'd like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, that's I forgot I do the physiological side. I forgot I do it all the time. I just, you know, like I literally do. I just forgot that I
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that's all of us. There's just so many to pick from that it can be overwhelming. And especially in
yeah.
the moment, you're like, you can get indecision or decision fatigue. Like
Yeah.
so it's kind of
Just
nice to
like
just have
have a
like
few.
the go-to. Yeah, it's just like here's the one that I always start with.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. That's good. Thank you.
Um, of course. Now, for when people are starting out, so if we're starting a breathwork practice, what's important to know about the offline practice is that the minimal effective dose is 5 minutes. Minimal effective dose is 5 minutes. And what that means is if you do 5 minutes, you are going to have some effect that kind of carries over into the next part of the day, right? How long does that effect last? It's like more than 5 minutes. The longer that we practice the offline type of breath work, it's like the longer the effect will linger. Right. And it's not a linear curve, so it's not like 5 minutes of breath work equals 5 more minutes after the breath work or off the mat, we call it sometimes, or off the bed. Um, so the if you do 10 minutes, it's not just twice as effective as 5 minutes. It might be like 3 or 4 times as effective. And so we can start to see how that curve really um, can be a huge amplifier. So that's the minimum effective dose. When we look at minimum effective dose for our online tools, like one breath, 3 breaths, 5 breaths, is sufficient to kind of give it a nudge. And one of the reasons that's the case is if we use the pendulum swing as an example, is there acceleration? Is there momentum in one direction that's happening? And so the breath oftentimes kind of just gives it a little nudge. Like maybe it's kind of been doing this and it's like getting ready to swing back the other way. And all we do is like give it a little nudge and maybe we like initiate that return to equilibrium. A little swing here. Or maybe it's this way, right? Depending on what type of breath that we're doing. So yeah, oftentimes like one breath can be a game changer. Really can be a game changer, right? Just nudges it back down the hill, right? And then the nervous system kind of takes care of the rest. Um, but if there is like I'm feeling myself ramping up, like it does have some of that momentum and velocity. It's like, well, then maybe you will have to do a little bit more. Maybe it's 3 breaths, maybe it's 5 breaths or more to get that effect. What is important to know when you do the online tools is this doesn't happen right away. It's not that second. It's just a little bit of a delay, about 10 seconds, right? So I think about it like if I'm really worked up, it's a little bit like opening the window in a hot kitchen. So the kitchen doesn't immediately get cooler. It's just going to take a little bit, but it definitely initiates the cooling of the kitchen. So that's kind of like us relaxing. Um, so yeah, minimum effective dose um, is a good place to start. Like knowing that, like okay, that is sufficient to get the change that I'm looking for. Um, just a little bit more on under breathing and over breathing. So yes, under breathing is practicing our ability to shift towards our parasympathetic nervous system, right? Um, can I be a little more comfortable with some of that air hunger, with a little bit of the CO2? Over breathing is it's kind of practicing what is it like when we're aroused. But if we're just lying down and we're breathing this way, it's right. It's like, well, things are fine. Like, I'm in a safe environment. And so a really common theme is like excitement and anxiety physiologically are the same, right? So there is kind of this interpretation of, am I anxious or am I just excited, right? High sympathetic arousal. So what we get to practice then um, is what it's like to have a lot of this stressor, this physiologic stress response. And if I'm just lying down and breathing fast, your nervous system could interpret that. You could interpret that as anxiety, right? But I'm lying down, I'm safe in my home. I'm the one doing it. I'm consciously moving my nervous system in that direction. And so then it starts to reappropriate it. It starts to reinterpret it naturally. You're like, oh, here are all these sensations. I can really feel them. The heart racing, the tension being created, maybe, and of course the breathing. So we then have this opportunity, like I can embrace that intensity, right? I can really have fun with it. If we're behind the steering wheel, it's like I'm the one stepping on the gas pedal. Like that could be fun. Whereas, um, and then we have this opportunity to like reinterpret that as excitement, right? And excitement has this feel of enjoyment, right? Like we can start to feel really good about this energy that we've put into the nervous system, right? And so that becomes our base so that when we have that same type of physiology IRL. We're out playing sport, we're working, right? We're in the business meeting, we're giving the presentation. Well, then our nervous system is going to a little bit more naturally tap into the excitement. Yeah. Like I've already practiced this lying down. My nervous system, like, oh, this is familiar. It's less likely to interpret it as anxiety, or we have the ability to reinterpret it a little bit more smoothly. So I think that's huge. I think one of my favorite things about that type of breath work, the over breathing, um, and then you're there for a moment, and then we under breathe, right? Let's do a breath hold, right? Or just really slow it down, linger into the exhale, and all of a sudden you're like, wow, I was really aroused, and I felt like this was going to be this way forever, right? And the next thing you know, you're like, wow, I like this is super relaxing, and I'm blissed out. This is it can feel really good, and you shifted like that just in a matter of seconds. So that can also be really empowering. Yeah. Um, so for beginners, maybe 5 minutes to start. How often should we do this? And then where do we go from here? How many days per week should I do it? And this type of thing, right? So this is habit building, right? We're talking about like establishing any habit. So one of the things that we talk about a lot in this group is like, well, can I add something in? Should I subtract? Should I just keep what I'm doing? Right? Well, it's like if you're living your best life and and you don't really feel like you need to add anything onto your plate, it's like, well, then maybe just keep going with what you're doing. Sounds good. Maybe you don't need breath work specifically. I would still advocate for it. I think everyone can benefit from this practice. Um, But with the adding and subtracting, it's like, hey, we're kind of asking to add something to the plate, right? Even if it is 5 minutes in the morning, it's like maybe your morning routine is already so tight before you head out the door. It's like, I don't know where I'd put those 5 minutes, right? Um, so the human tendency is to just like keep adding stuff. So oftentimes maybe a subtraction is part of the solution, right? It's like, oh, well, I wake up and I scroll on my phone for 10 minutes. It's like, okay, well, let's subtract that first. Let's just practice subtracting that first, right? That's a step in the right direction. Get a little bit more comfortable with that. But when we subtract, it's kind of like telling a kid, like, hey, don't do that. And then they're like, then they kind of want to do that thing because you've just brought more attention to it. So instead, we can redirect our attention. So it's like instead of drinking the Coca-Cola, drink water instead, like just focus on drinking water. And so we do kind of supplant something that is going to be beneficial. So yes, if you have something you're like, I know this isn't good for me in my morning routine, it's like, well, yeah, try to maybe let's replace it. Let's replace it with something good like breath work. Okay. Um, Now, um, what might be useful is kind of talking about um, just some of the commonalities along all of these habit books and the things that authors talk about. So the ones that I'm pulling from, Atomic Habits is a really popular one. Charles Duhigg wrote The Power of Habit, and then one that I think is really underrated is the as Elastic Habits. Elastic Habits. So we'll actually go into Elastic Habits a little bit. Some of his ideas, which I think are really good for sustainability, right? So that we can kind of just keep with this practice in the long term. So I'm going to share my screen, and basically what he does is he creates a little matrix for our habits. All right, so we're heading over to the whiteboard. Okay. So what he does is he creates three tiers, like three levels for maintaining a habit. So what this might be labeled as is something like, um, let's just call it like mindfulness or something like that, right? So that's kind of the, like, I want to just build in some mindfulness in my day. And so breath work can be part of that, right? So we could say breath awareness is a mindfulness practice, but so is over breathing and under breathing. So on this top one, this will be our breathwork practice. A mini habit is something that is so small that you'll always, pretty much always have the opportunity to do it every single day, right? There's no reason I can't do this. Let's put in 2 minutes breath work, right? 2 minutes of breath work. It's like, yeah, could I do that every single day? I'm like, okay, sure. But Jared, you said that 5 minutes was the minimum effective dose. Yeah, that is true. But what we're doing is we're giving you the opportunity to like, oh, I checked the box and I did the thing today. Like it counts. So if I'm trying to create this like daily routine, I did 2 minutes of breath work. Okay. And then the plus column is, um, well, it's kind of in the middle. It's like, this is where I want to be most days. Most days. So let's say maybe that's 10 minutes, right? It's like, yeah, I feel like I could do that most days, um, and feel really good about it. Again, I'm definitely gonna get that after effect and yeah, um, can substantially improve my nervous system resilience. And then elite is like, oh, I have some extra time and I want to give it more. Like 10 minutes just doesn't feel good enough. And then this gives you something to shoot for they can feel especially good about. So elite might be, I don't know, 25 minutes, something like that. Cool. Right? Pretty straightforward. So we have some levels here. All right, most of the time I want to be at this like 10 minutes. But oh, this morning I have to rush out the door or whatever it is, or I didn't get to do it before I left. I did 2 minutes in my car, right? I did 2 minutes on the train. I did 2 minutes when I was in between things, right? And then basically what he recommends is like as you move along, like well, you can adjust these. And if you find that, for example, like, wow, I rarely hit 10 minutes and 6 out of 7 days I only did 2 minutes. It's like, well, maybe your plus is too high. Like maybe your plus is 5 minutes, right? You could make that adjustment. And you'll come to learn that as you just like look at your previous weeks. And then so you can keep just kind of tweaking this until the majority of your days you're doing the plus routine. And then we're not missing any days. Like you're like, oh, two, I like maybe it's 1 minute, again, like so small that you can just like, I did the thing, I still tapped in to the practice, give myself a check mark. Okay. So what are these other two squares? Well, this is where the author would say we have some lateral options. So I know we're going down, but these are our lateral options. So these ones aren't breath work, right? So remember, like, hey, maybe this was a mindfulness practice. So maybe this is 2 minutes of meditation. Yeah, let's change this one back. 2 minutes of meditation. This one would be maybe the same. 10 minutes of meditation. Elite, 25 minutes of meditation. Something like that. Okay. So then like, hey, I didn't really want to do breath work this morning. I kind of just wanted to sit and meditate. Like again, checks this mindfulness box. Or like whatever this category is, right? Um, and then let's do another one. Like what else could kind of count for mindfulness? It's like, well, maybe I would um journal. Um, what would we say? Like one line on my notebook. Journal one line on my notebook. My plus would be to journal one page. Obviously depends on like notebook size. It could be time duration as well for this one. Journal 300 words. I don't know, something like that. Right. So it counts, right? And it's just like I could do any one of these things and still get that check mark, right? Of my daily mindfulness practice. Right. So then we don't feel so stuck in like, well, I have to do breath work every single day, right? It could be like, yeah, maybe I meditate, maybe I just go pen to paper, right? Another one could be like a movement practice, like yoga or Tai Chi. It could also be like, hey, I go for a walk, right? And then you do the same thing. Okay, I just walk around my house. I walk around the block. I head out into the woods and I walk for 2 miles, right? And so we can start to establish these levels and it gives you some flexibility within your own practice, within your own building. Um, and so I mentioned what it would be like if we weren't hitting the plus very much, but what would it be like if we had a lot of plus and we're hitting elite 5 days out of the week? It's like, well, maybe we went too small. Like if I started with, I was like, oh, 15 minutes. It's like, well, yeah, it feels too close. It's like, well, I did plus, I might as well do 15. And then I'm doing 15 every time. It's like, well, maybe we bump it up. Like, then you could try this for a week. 15 minutes here, half an hour, right? Again, elite is like you really want to feel like, hell yeah, I really did it today. Like A plus plus, something like that. So I think that's a pretty compelling way to like build in some flexibility and have a very sustainable practice so that we can do something every single day. Every single day. Just get into the habit of doing something every single day, and breath work maybe is my go-to, right? Maybe that's the one that I do the most of. But maybe you find like maybe you're more attracted to the meditation aspect of it or the journal aspect. By the way, meditation and breath work like have a lot of overlap. Breath awareness, it's like, is that breath work or meditation? It's kind of both. It's a little bit of both. Um, yeah, any questions about that one?
No, I got it.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Um, yeah, and so then a common question is like, well, how often should I do like the offline breathing? It's like, well, I think that starts to point at like, well, we kind of do offline breathing every day,
Hmm.
right? And then sometimes it's 2 minutes, right? 2 minutes. But like, hey, most of the days I'm like, I'm gonna really commit, like I'm gonna try to hit 10,
Yeah.
something like that. Like just getting into the habit, getting into the routine, like oftentimes is the toughest part. That
Hmm.
is the toughest part. But then once you have it established, like
Yeah.
it becomes so much easier, and that really is a lead domino, right? It's gonna knock over the next thing, and those all the things down the way are gonna become significantly easier, right?
Hmm.
Um, yeah, yeah. Any questions or comments popping up for you?
No, no questions. It's all making sense. No comments, really. I mean,
Yeah,
it's yeah, pretty understandable.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, consistency is key. Consistency is really key here when we tap into our breathwork practice. And so that's also true for like the type of breathwork that we're doing. So it's really tempting to have the shiny object syndrome where it's like, oh, I'm gonna try this breathwork practice and this over here, this over that.
Yeah.
Like I really recommend that
Doing the
like
same thing.
if you find something that you like, it's like practice that, do the same breathwork track over and over again. Keep going with whatever online tool that you've selected,
Hmm.
right? And then if it's really not working, like, yeah, discard it and try something else. But it's oftentimes more of those like little, like subtle tweaks. Like
Yeah.
that breath tool will work. It might just need like a little bit of a shift for you. Everyone's gonna be different, right? So it's like start at the start, but then make it your own, right? Make it your own. So, perfect breath. It's like some people it's 4-4,
Yeah.
right? And for others, like that feels too fast. They're like, no, I really need it to like I feel a lot better when I count to six, right? I'm like, yeah, go for it. Like do
Hmm.
6-6. Sounds good. Hey, we're always paying attention to the internal state, the interoception. What is my body telling my brain? How does this change as I continue to breathe, right? So the breath awareness practice allows that to become more, it like builds resolution, right? We can see it with more clarity. And then as we implement the practice, we can see it change. We can see more subtle changes. Um, and then it just makes it easier to fine tune these both offline practices and the
Hmm.
online tools.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Makes
cool.
sense. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I think that's all I got. I don't think anything else is popping up for me.
It's good. Yeah. It's good to remember all this stuff. You know,
Awesome. Yeah, and I was also thinking,
I always gotta remember.
I was like, I've been building my practice for a long time, but then there are these moments where I'm like, I'm just a beginner again. Like I just go back to like, I'm like, okay, I'm doing 2 minutes, 5 minutes here some mornings, and I'm like,
Yeah.
making my way through it. It's like I just go back to beginner mode again. And some days, some weeks are just like that. Um, which is with the elastic habit 3x3 matrix
Hmm.
made it a lot easier. So I didn't feel like, oh, I used to do 15 to 20 minutes and now I'm only, like what happened? I felt like I fell off the horse entirely. That's how I could have interpreted it before. But now I'm
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, this is just like a little bit of a lull. I still get to check the box. I know that I'm gonna bounce back and I give myself a little bit of time to
Hmm.
get back on the horse, so to speak.
Yeah.
It just feels entirely different, right? I don't feel like I failed and there's no guilt and shame attached to it. I'm like, no, that's just what my
Yeah.
nervous system was doing this week. It's good to be a beginner again, kind of see it through those eyes, and just give myself some grace that like I didn't perform how I was before, right? It's not like so attached to my identity and ego and these types of things. Yeah, it feels really good. It feels really good. And I'm like, yeah, this is just how it is. Yeah. Yeah,
Hmm.
Jared, you've been doing this for a year and a half or whatever it is. You should be better at this now. It's like, no, I don't subscribe to that narrative.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, I think we'll end it there.
All right. Sounds
Cool.
good.